Okay, let's now look at the expectancy theory of motivation. What does this theory tell us about motivation? So, this theory suggests that when we're thinking about our future, we formulate these different expectations about what we think will happen. So, just like the little girl in the picture, right? She's looking up and she's thinking about her future, and she's coming up with different predictions about what might happen. And when we predict that there will most likely be some kind of a positive outcome, a positive result, then we believe that we are able to make that possible future a reality. So this belief leads us to feel more motivated to pursue those likely outcomes and those results. So there's actually a formula for the expectancy theory, and your textbook slightly simplifies that formula, which I'd like to share with you right now. And we're also going to apply the ideas in this formula to the concept of why we're all going to college. So the formula for motivation, you see it on the screen. It's M equals V times E, where M is clearly motivation, V stands for value, and E stands for expectancy. So let's break it down a little bit more. Now the V in values we've already talked about because we talked about intrinsic and extrinsic motivators, right? What are the benefits, the incentives, and the rewards? And all the value means is the benefits that you think you'll get from having reached a goal. And in this case, our goal that we're talking about is getting a college degree. But when you think about values, of course, you need to keep in mind that they come from not only the outcomes or the end results, but they also come from the experiences, right? The journey, what we call the process. And obviously, the greater the benefits in terms of your outcomes and experiences, obviously the more motivated you're going to be. And the more motivated that you are, the higher the cost that you're willing to pay in terms of how much time you spend, how much money you spend, how much effort you put into something, and also the levels of frustration and inconvenience that you're willing to put up with, and the kinds of sacrifices that you're going to make. So value, we've already sort of talked about it. But we're also looking at expectancy. And expectancy you can think of, do you expect it to happen? How likely do you think it's going to happen? The probability that something is going to happen. And so whatever goal you have in mind, is it likely that it's going to happen with a reasonable effort? And in the case of our example, we're talking about going to college. Graduating from college. How likely do you think it is that you will earn this college degree with a reasonable effort? So a lot of variables come to play when we talk about expectancy when we're talking about getting a college education. You need to kind of weigh your abilities, like how good of a student you are. And we're not just talking about hard skills, like how good of a writer are you, how good of a reader, how good are you at logical thinking, math, science. But we're also looking at your skill sets, your soft skill sets, like are you organized? Do you have good time management skills? Do you know how to prioritize, avoid procrastination? So those come into play. But also what comes into play is how strong your previous education is. So if in K through 12 education you did well and that degree that you earned represents good learning, you do have the hard skills, you do have the soft skills, obviously the likelihood that you're going to do well in college is higher. Now, if those skill sets were lower, in either, again, the hard or the soft skill set, it doesn't mean it's not possible to graduate from college. It just means that it's a little bit more challenging. But we have to weigh these abilities against also the difficulty of achieving the goal. So you have to keep in mind that not all, colleges are the same, not all programs are the same level of challenge, not all courses are the same level. So you have to weigh the difficulty and also how much you're willing to sacrifice. So when we put those two things together, we actually multiply them, we get a number. And I want you to think about yourself, and I want you to give a number from 0 to 10 for both the value and the expectancy. So let's say that 0 is no value in college, 0 is no likelihood that you're going to graduate. And then, of course, 10 is that college has a huge value, and a 10 in expectancy is it's extremely likely that you're going to graduate. And I want you to give yourself a score on each one of those. Give yourself a value score, give yourself an expectancy score, and then multiply those two numbers. So now you have some number between 0 and 100. And what you'll notice is that if either the value or the expectancy score is low, then the motivation is going to be low. We need to have both a high value and a high expectancy in order for us to have high motivation. That's what the expectancy theory tells us. So one of my goals this week and the entire semester of this course is to ensure that you do in fact see the high value in education and getting a college degree. So we got to make sure that you see both those intrinsic and extrinsic rewards associated with getting a college degree. And of course, as we progress in the semester, I also want to help you to increase your own expectancy score. I want to help you become the very best student that you can be. So then the likelihood of your graduating is even higher. And here we are to our third theory of motivation, which is actually a humanistic theory. And humanistic theories focus on the fact that we as individuals, we as people have very strong cognitive reasons for behaving the ways in which we do. Now, the theory that I'm sharing with you comes from a gentleman named Abraham Maslow. He's the originator of this theory, and we actually call it Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And basically what it does, it relates that motivation is caused by this desire to fill unsatisfied needs. So we have these needs, they're not met, and we need to meet them. And so the motivation comes from wanting to meet those unsatisfied needs. And we actually have 5 different kinds, what you could call 5 different categories of needs. And you can see them there in the pyramid as you start at the base and you work to the top. And there is also a hierarchy, meaning that lower needs, lower on that pyramid, those needs need to be satisfied first. We call those deficiency needs, before we can move up to the top of the pyramid onto those higher needs. So Maslow came up with this hierarchy, and there's an order to it. The needs need to be met in a certain order. And you can see at the base, we have the physiological needs, and those are the basic needs that every human needs for, food and water and warmth. We need to have rest and sleep. We need to have clothing and shelter. And then you move up to the next level. Once those needs are met, we have safety needs. And safety, they call it security, but it takes on a lot of different things from our body security in terms of protection from, violence, but also having health. It's property protection, again, from vandalism and theft. It's also the safety and security of our finances so that we do have jobs and financial stability. And so that's the second level. Now you'll notice just in those very 2 basic levels how this operates. If you're at the basic level and the physiological level and you're a student in school, well, it's really hard to care about learning, or it's hard to care about doing for other people and volunteering if you're starving, for example. And if you go to the second level, you could say the same thing. If a kid in school might really have a hard time learning and achieving if they haven't eaten, for one, and 2, if they actually feel unsafe in school, if they feel bullied or they feel that somebody might bring a gun to school and they feel threatened. So we have to have these basic levels met before we move on to the next stages. And the third stage is the need for love and belonging. And this is where friends and family, relationships, it's social needs, being part of different social groups, clubs, even having coworkers. So once our basic needs are met, we can move up to that need for belonging. The 4th level in Maslow's hierarchy deals with esteem. And that's, getting confidence, which comes not only from within, self-esteem, but it also comes from others, that we feel internally valued, we feel externally valued, and that we have some sense of our achievements and respect that comes with that. And the highest level on Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the level that we all want to achieve, but not necessarily everybody gets to this level, is the need to self-actualize. And you can see it right there. It says achieving one's full potential, and it's essentially becoming the very best version of yourself. This takes into account so many things: your education, your knowledge, your talents, your skills. It's caring for other people. It's your highest level goals and interests and passions. It's being creative. It's finding your mission in life, and again, becoming the very best version of yourself. So this is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It means that we have these unmet needs that we need to satisfy, but they occur in a hierarchy. And I also want you to think of Maslow's as, climbing a mountain. You could say climbing Mount Everest. And before you go to each next level, you kind of have to check in at the base camp, with the guide or with the Sherpa, and they won't let you go to the next level until you make sure that those needs at that first level are met. All right, so we've defined motivation. We've looked at 3 different motivation theories. We've looked at incentive theory, expectancy theory, and a humanistic theory called Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So let's finally get back to that original question that I posed. Do you remember what it was? I asked you why. Why are you in college? What are some of those outcomes and experiences that you are wanting to have? So I want you to go ahead and mute me for just a minute. I want you to tell me what's on your list. Say what's on your list out loud right now. And do keep in mind that, of course, you're going to be sharing your list with me and with your classmates this week in all of our discussions and all of our activities. But I'd like to share my list, and by extension, a list of things that other people say they want out of college. So again, just put my voice on pause for a second and go ahead and read both sides of this chart. You read it out loud if you want, and see if you agree with the items that are on the list. And if there are some particular ones on this list that you really want to achieve yourself, go ahead and add it to your list. When you're finished, return back, and I think we can all agree that, wow, there are a lot of amazing reasons why people go to college. And in fact, this list itself should be motivating us right now to jump into action to do even better so we can reach our dreams and our goals and maybe, like Maslow, become self-actualized.